Happy November, everybody. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. I'm Dennis Fithian, ready to kick this one off. November, when you're a college football fan and the team you follow is undefeated, you've got the college football rankings coming out, and you look at the home stretch and you see 2 home games remaining, 2 on the road, the penultimate home game coming up this Saturday night at the Big House. It's right, another night game into November. And, you got to pinch yourself there thinking about wherever you're at in your life. At some point, as a Michigan football fan, you said, I just hope they could win it all. Could they ever, win the Big Ten, beat Ohio State, win it all? And, it's all in front of them. So it's a time to, sit back and just say, wow, this is going really well. On the field, I don't think it could go any better. I just want to have a frank conversation with all of you about Michigan and, where they sit. We all know what's going on. We all know what's happening. We all have our opinions. You see opinions coming in from every side on the Michigan football team. And, they're going to be able to do it all. It looks like, at least I think so, this year, have that opportunity. So today we'll look at those college football playoff standings that were put out there yesterday briefly. The first one released to at least weigh in on what it means. Also, the NCAA investigation and contract buzz with Jim Harbaugh kind of tied together a little bit. Some, new wrinkles there. A new wrinkle. You had Central playing yesterday, and you had their head coach making a comment about the SS, or the sign stealer on the sideline. So we'll talk about that. But we start out with Michigan taking on Purdue coming up this Saturday night. And so, what are you thinking here? Michigan, gigantic favorite, over 30 points, 32.5-point favorite. A little bit after 7 o'clock kickoff, you're going to have Noah Eagle, Todd Blackledge, Catherine Tappan as your broadcast crew. They did a couple. They did the Minnesota game. That game was on NBC. I know Peacock is not NBC. It's they're and it wasn't Blackledge for that first game. So what are my thoughts about this game? Look, all of them at this point. Michigan. I'm sitting here. I'm thinking Michigan should win this game. Michigan, can they play any better than they played their last time out? At Michigan State. And they played, you just look at the score. No, probably not. But you do go back and you've seen it from other teams that, just because Michigan, a lot of people talking about, Michigan's going to win the national championship. But okay, yeah, that's a long ways to go for all of that. But I'm not over here telling you to, take this one, one game at a time and just focus in on Purdue. And those players need to be able to do that. Harbaugh needs to be able to do that. But the way Michigan's playing right now and what I've seen from them, I think about the way the offense is played. And if the biggest thing that we're talking about is, but Donovan Edwards, his yards per carry, his yards per reception, pretty good. Yards per carry, we'd like to see that a little bit more. If that's going to be your biggest issue, you're doing really good. Because Donovan Edwards is still one of the biggest weapons in all of college football. And I'll make this prediction right now. Donovan Edwards will make a huge play, an explosive play of over 50 yards in one of these remaining games, and people will be like, wow, we were doubting, Donovan Edwards, and, okay, yeah, you were doubting him, but he will make his mark. Now, it could be on Saturday night, if he could have multiple. Look, hell, he had multiple, a 75 and 85 yard run against Ohio State just in the fourth quarter last year. So, just saying one, you say, hey, why don't you go out on a limb? I don't know. I'm just talking about if that's the biggest issue you have is Donovan Edwards on offense, then you don't really have that big of an issue with the team on the field. And defensively, we talk about, what about the other corner? The other corner looks pretty good. Michigan, they like Josh Wallace. They got a number of guys. McBurrows has been playing. Marion Walker is back. I mean, they got a lot of different players over there opposite of Will Johnson. And they get a lot of guys that have gotten experience like on the field again. The defense, I would have to give an A. The offense, I would also give an A to. So, I mean, look at here we are. This you leave a little bit. And here's the thing about it. I think everybody would give Michigan an NA on both sides of the ball. And yet it does feel like the offense, in particular that running game, and the offensive line, as well as they played, and they're undefeated, they're number 2, they're number 3 in the college football playoff ranking, all this ahead. Still think that offensive line and could come out, and they've got a little bit more a ceiling to go to actually play their best. That's good. And I think the same thing, with the running game overall. Give it an A, but it could go even a little bit higher. So I think that's good. So, everything, you play this game. We play the game all the time in the offseason. You say, oh, well, if you'd rather have this or rather have that. If you could tell me everything would go almost perfectly on the field for Michigan through 8 games. If you'd have told me like J.J. McCarthy will look fabulous and he will be the odds-on favorite after 8 games for the Heisman Trophy. The passing game is exceeding all expectations. And, the defense coming off of a shutout, one of the top-ranked units in the country. Certainly, you'd look at the schedule and say, well, we always said, this is if you told me this before the season, I'd say, yeah, but the way the schedule looks, and it can always be, play out differently. Their 3 toughest games are going to be their 3 last games. And you'd say, yeah, that's right. So, but, taking the on the field performance to this point, you'd say, yeah, but what if it's a little rough off the field? And you'd say, it's been a little rough off the field, but super smooth on the field, a little bit rough off the field. That's better than being rough on the field. Like you might drop a game or 2 or be really worried about a position group or something like that, and then just have smooth sailing. Yeah, it would be nice if you could have everything. I agree with that. Just nice, smooth. You know what I would like from football, my football, and I would like for it to not be like politics. Like, I would like that if, I heard a broadcaster, you wouldn't feel like, hey, this is like I'm watching Fox News or I'm watching CNN, in that it seems very predictable about whoever's talking, and whoever they're talking with, they're automatically going to believe what everybody's saying. But it is, I can't get what I want, the ESPN, BTN, Fox, I pretty much, whoever's up there and they're talking, I know what they're going to say, and that's what happened. So that's where we are. I can't change that, even though I would like it. That's just the way it is. So, it's all about who went where, who has the contract. It's too bad that it's like that, but it is. That's the world that we live in. So I can't do anything about that. But on the field, things have been spectacular. And I think Michigan is going to win this game. Could you make a case that this is a game, a trap game that, they'll be looking ahead to going to Penn State? I mean, off of a bye, could you make a case that, there was all of this, talk swirling around them that they could get distracted? You can make those cases. I don't think that the team is sitting around like, oh, everybody thinks that we're, not worthy or something. If anything, I think that's going to motivate them to, if there was hey, do you think they'll be distracted, or do you think that they would use it as a motivation for the rest of the season? I'll go with the latter. I would say that. I'm not trying to be a homer or anything on that. I'm giving you my honest opinion on that. The other part, would I consider this to be a trap game because they're a 32 that they would take Purdue lightly? Well, considering that, they don't want to deal with any of the outside noise and that, they've got a championship. You want to, in their sights, November's the time that you got to, batten down the hatches and put the blinders on and focus and everything. I would think that no, that they would not be taking Purdue lightly and that, they will go out. And I think that the talk, which, there's some legitimacy to it that, Michigan, they just haven't really, played a big time opponent. It's true. But what can they do? They can go out and they can manhandle the Boilers and they can send them back to West Lafayette with their tail between their legs. And, and then Michigan can say, okay, we're ready for the next test. And that's what I think is going to happen. So that's how I feel about everything on the field. Pretty good in how it's going. Let's see what the people are thinking about Michigan on this Wednesday as we have turned the calendar and we are into November. Hope everybody had a great Halloween. Count 22 is saying the media has absolutely lost their brains. The media, they love a feeding frenzy. They love a quote unquote scandal. And, they got one to sink their teeth into here. So, yeah, they're, college football, this isn't new. Talking about what's going on the field, a lot of the talk of what's going on off the field. Let's do that. Richard likes the football talk. That's what's going on. Account is saying not only is Michigan going to win on Saturday, that they're going to win every remaining game by 20 plus points, including the playoff. Now that's a nice thought. Account 22. I hadn't really thought. I'll consider that right now. Could Michigan go to Penn State and win that one by 20? Yeah. Would I pick that right now? No, but I double digits. So, I'm not so far off, right? Do I think they could go to Maryland and win that one by 20? I do. Would I predict that right now? Yeah, I'll predict that they would beat Maryland. And so then it's Ohio State. Now, did they beat Ohio State 33-43? They did beat Ohio State by 20 last year. And then the previous year, what was that, 42-27, 37? That wasn't quite by 20, right? 42-27, 37-47. No. I think the Penn State game and the Ohio State game might be a little bit closer than what you're talking about. And then, it's hard to say since we don't know. Michigan plays Florida State in the first semifinal in the Rose Bowl. Ooh, that would be nice. And then has to play, I don't know, pick it, Georgia in the national championship game in Houston. Do I think Michigan? I wouldn't say that they would win those games by 20. I probably spent too much time talking about that particular point. Mark says, still not clear of compliance. HR, Ward Manual, Captain Stalions on the bylaws. Isn't that basic employee orientation? Well, I don't know about. I don't know. I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So I was going to talk about the college football playoff. You're talking about compliance and basic HR training. I don't know. Different jobs have different things. You come in and you have your training and all of that. I know working in radio over 25 years. Sure, we had but it was a little bit different. When you came rolling in as a talk show host and everybody else in the building. What I'm saying here, it's a little bit different when you're, on a coaching staff and everybody else, even though the basics of what you're talking about there, I guess. I mean, it's hard to have a conversation with you, Mark. It's one of the things I'm not 100% sure, where you're at about the basics there. and all of that. Good to see John Mark following it up, and he's making a prediction of hard to one up OSU on a 41-7 road win versus Purdue. Yeah, that doesn't matter to me. Scott disappointed with these potential recruiting violations. I'm not 100% sure what you're talking about there, so I'm just going to have to leave that one there. Dennis, are you really talking about Connor Stallings? I don't know. I don't know what that means. Did I mispronounce Stalions' name? Is that what happened there? I'm not sure. All right, college football playoff. So Michigan's number 3, OSU and Georgia in front of them. How do I feel about that? I feel fine. I think that with the undefeated teams that you have, what do you have? Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and Washington. You have 5 undefeated teams. So even if Michigan was at 5, Ohio State being at number 1, that Michigan is playing Ohio State, and that if Michigan wins the remaining games, it's a guarantee. They will go into the Big Ten championship game. I almost feel like that's can I just say, it's going to be a win? Yes. Michigan controls their own destiny in getting into the college football playoff. So it really wouldn't have mattered if they would have been at 5. Now, we would have griped a little bit like, oh, this is because of the NCAA stuff. And I think a lot of people I thought would have believed that. But so having them at number 3, I see no problem with that. That's my thoughts on the college football playoff. And the college football playoff selection committee, the chairman, he's interviewed afterwards. One of the questions was about Michigan and the NCAA. And they're like, look, if they're eligible to play, we're going to vote them like we're not taking that into account. And, I believe that. And it doesn't matter if Michigan wins all of their games. Where it's going to get tricky is if Michigan drops a game. And look, if Michigan drops a game, I'll say right now that I don't expect them to be in the college football playoff. Now, we just saw it last year with Ohio State. But considering, Michigan and the schedule that they played, and if they dropped a game, maybe you want to make a case it's 1 versus 2 at the end, a lot of funny things. And sure, I'm not immediately saying there's no way that they would back in if they lost. I'm just saying it doesn't really matter. They control their own destiny. I don't think that they would. The odds would be against them getting in if they lost a game, but stranger things have happened. We just saw it last year. So, and I'm not thinking about Michigan losing a game. I'm thinking about them winning it all. And then I'm thinking about them getting into, after they win the Big Ten, into the college football playoff for a 3rd time. And I like their chances, whoever they play. If there's any of those teams we just talked about, bring it on. I mean, Michigan, they look like they're ready, to take a step up in competition. And, they look like they're poised to win it all. Now, will they be able to? I know a lot of people, they, they're every day there's some kind of wrinkle in here. And we had Connor Stalions, over the last couple of days, that Stalions went to CMU on that Friday night to watch Michigan State. Maybe that was him over there, the guy in the sunglasses. Some people saying maybe, he had a recording device in his sunglasses. And I don't know if that's him or not. Jim McElwain last night, as Central was playing afterwards, said, I don't know about the sign stealer. And then he did say that he was not on any sideline pass list. But I would also think that he could have, if he would have recognized, like, oh, yeah, that's old Smitty, Jim Smith. He's quality control or whatever. But he didn't say that. So, but then he didn't say, it was Stalions. But then he said he wasn't on the pass list. So that's a little bit wild. Maybe he's, trying to do a little CYA there, cover his own behind, because he's like, he was down there, but he snuck on the sideline or something. So I don't know. The other part is when you have big time, I'm going to say big time, when you have, big time TV hosts, talking heads, coming out and denouncing Michigan. And we have seen that over the last 24 hours. Stephen A. Smith was on, I don't know if it was, is it First Take, the one he does? He was there, and Feinbaum was on there. And in both of them, Feinbaum reversed course of where he was, a week ago. And, now he's against Michigan. And Stephen A. Smith calling upon the Big Ten, to lock them out. If I could give everyone, you say, what are your thoughts on Michigan and this controversy? I would say, yeah, we're going to have to let it play out right now. We know that the NCAA, they are not going to be able to get in. Michigan will have a chance, to respond to any allegations when they're served up. And then at the Big Ten, it would be unprecedented, and it would be the shocker of all time if the Big Ten stepped in without allowing Michigan to defend themselves with these allegations, and how the sport has been run and how other teams have been able to. It would all be really wild if it happened. So the biggest name in sports can come out and they can beg for it. They can talk about it. They can talk about anything they want. But knowing the landscape of this sport, where it's been, where it's going, what always happens, how it should play out, that Michigan will be able to play this season. And if they do earn a spot in the college football playoff, they'll be able to play in it. And then we will see what happens in that college football playoff. Now, I'd be happy, like anybody would say, you wouldn't say that if it was Ohio State or Alabama. Well, there have been a lot of situations where other teams have been in seemingly hot water, and been dead to rights. But then, you got to play it out down the line. You do have to give them a chance. So it's that part is the same for Michigan. So I do get if you. And nobody's, sitting out there just, above the fray, like being completely objective on everything, and, people want, they want hot takes, and, you got to be able to mix it up when you get in there. And do I understand people on the outside from Michigan being like, oh yeah, maybe they, let's do something about it. Yeah, sure. Scream and yell. You've got time to fill. But, in the end, Michigan, they should be able to play the rest of this season, and then we'll let this play out in the offseason. It'd be premature by the conference and unprecedented for them to step in there, despite what, Stephen A. Smith, might think about it. So, but I know it gets people worked up. I do know that. And get ready for more of that. Now, what about Harbaugh and the possibility of signing him to a deal? What would this do? Now, would this mean everything for Michigan? No. But it would be there's been a lot of talk, obviously. And I was looking today on the posting board on the Den of the Maize and Blue Review, and the one thread was, why doesn't Michigan do anything? Why don't they fight back? Why don't they hit with these allegations? Well, you can't really do anything like that. But there is certain ways, the president took a team picture that may have said 1,000 words to you. What else could they do? They could sign the coach admits all of this to a contract. Now, sure, that there's going to be clauses, and it doesn't mean, but what it would mean is that Michigan and the administration, they have the coaches back. It would also mean that they've looked over the evidence and that they would feel pretty good. I would think, wouldn't you, that if they were signing Harbaugh, that they feel pretty good with their position, that they'll be able to weather this. So that would be the strike back. That would be That would be really positive. Like I said, I don't think it means everything, but it would mean a lot. And, you can feel good about that if you're a Michigan fan. And the Harbaugh, if he signed this contract, I would feel like, this would be it, anymore. That would end the NFL speculation. They don't have the safe harbor things. Who knows what there's always something there, but I think it would make a strong statement. It would be a way that Michigan could fight back, strike back, control, take a part in the narrative where they're just having everybody else like, you big fat dirt, and they could come back and say, look, we're standing by our coach. We've looked at the evidence here, and we feel pretty good about our position. And so I get that. Bimba saying sign him. I understand. Okay, well, a couple more down the line here. I always look for your feedback to see where you're at. Account 22 is asking, anyone can be Connor with the BS they're trying to pull with the Central situation. I don't know what the BS is. I mean, like, you can understand why you would want to know if this was him, because the law, like the whole idea of Michigan working around the advanced scouting, which I thought sounded like a good idea, paying somebody else to do it, and kind of gets around the way that the bylaw is written. I thought, hey, that's smart. NCAA might not see it that way, but the whole thing about in person. So he would be in person at a game of one of Michigan's opponents. So it wouldn't look good. So, I mean, when you're talking about the BS, I don't know whether it's BS or not, it is, and whatever any, further penalties are going to be, if that is proven out to be Stalions in person, that would be one for the NCAA, not for Michigan. And remember, even if he is acting alone, which, is, and, that's what Michigan is, it looks like the best case scenario for them. And then they can also say, yeah, he was acting alone and we didn't use any of his stuff, even though you can believe whatever you want to believe. It's what you can prove that way. And it's going to be how the NCAA sees that as a judge and juror. And, that would be, that would be a part in it where, that would be one for the NCAA. So I don't know about what BS you're referring to. Here's Mark. He wants me to talk about employee training. Yeah, I don't really understand, Mark, exactly. I mean, you want me to pull out the employee handbook, and exactly what it says about. So I don't understand. I try to understand things. You have to spell it out for me a little bit harder, or a little bit not harder, clearer for me. Now, make it like you're spelling it out to like a 10-year-old. Sometimes I need that. Michael says nobody's talking about CMU's win over Northern Illinois. True. GC says, I have the feeling that 7 is going to break out post-bye, likely versus Purdue. Donovan Edwards is number 7, so I see where you're coming from there. We talked about him. Richard says, as my dad would say, son of a beech nut gum, all this extracurricular bull needs to be curtailed with a smashing performance by our beloved team. That part is true. What Michigan, the team can go out, the bye week, you think about in past years, when Michigan's winning, you're like, whoo, you get another week, just enjoying being undefeated and everything else. But, there's a part with this team and how this season is that each week, Michigan can just go out there and you're like, what can they do now? They look strong. They look ready. You're anticipating them going out and, flexing their muscle. Right, Vince? Vince says he can't believe there's only 4 games left. Let's have a November to remember. Nice job. Here's Mark, maybe spelling it out. Most long runs are almost always good teams taking a risk, making a mistake. All right. Our offense is actually tested. We've played much more legitimate defenses than people realize. Yeah. Okay. Scott doesn't want to give the running game an A. That's fine. You don't have to. Leo says Ohio State should enjoy their CFP ranking for now. It ends November 25th. I understand what you're saying there. Let's see. We'll grab a couple more from people that have not gotten in. Purdue plays a lot of man coverage. JJ will have a big game. Purdue's defense is perfect for Donovan. There's another one. Donovan will have a big game. I don't know how you cover Donovan, Barner, and Loveland. That's bye-bye. That's a TD. Thomas, when will Michigan play a team with a pulse? And I'm a Michigan fan. Michigan ranked number 3 is right. Well, I don't know. Do you consider Penn State on the road? I mean, they're ranked. They're in the top 10. So the answer is next week, Thomas. The question? Here's Antoine showing up. Let's see what he's saying. Like the old saying goes, Dennis, especially for Michigan, if it ain't rough, it ain't right. Yeah, well, I always thought about it ain't rough, it ain't right for the 2004 Pistons. And one of my favorite athletes, Chauncey Billups, would always say that. You know, the Pistons got down 3-2 to the Miami Heat. They got down 3-2 to the Nets, and they had to go to New Jersey, and they won that game. They won it in 7. They were being at that game, and afterwards, Chauncey said, "Yeah, if it ain't rough, it ain't right." So, yeah, and this side you can use it. I mean, if you're a fan of a team, I'll buy it. Georgia will jump. We'll see if everybody's winning, and you get down there to the end, that you could just see a number 1 versus number 2 scenario with OSU and Michigan. Yes, I would imagine if it's getting down where Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan are all undefeated, and then how the teams look in that final weekend could be important, and then you go to your conference title game, and then I don't even know who's it was. Michigan playing Wisconsin or something like over on the other side, and kill them, and yet it could be an Alabama Georgia scenario where you're saying ooh, and so that would maybe elevate Georgia. I mean, I could see that happening. What you're saying. Richard says this every week, and he has been consistent. He's in on the 15-0. That's it. Let's see. What if we'll take a couple more here? I thought that was it, and yet no. It looks like I've got 100 people here bringing in comments. So we'll take some people that have not been in yet. Andres says Purdue is about to get brutalized. Like, cover your eyes bad. Ringo wants to know about who this Brent Z is and what he is to the Ohio football team. You mean the Ohio State football team? This is like complete Michigan talk right here. I don't know. Is Brent Z the Ohio State Stalions? I mean, is that? I think that's what you're getting at there. Okay, here's Mark. Maybe spelling it out for me. A Marine captain makes 60 to 90K. Michigan HR went on the cheap and seems to have wanted a lot of pre-employment work to get any chance. Hard to imagine a Marine captain was properly trained on bylaws. Well, Mark, what I would say about being properly trained on bylaws, it is the responsibility of the football team and who you're hiring there, and ultimately the head coach, to be trained on bylaws. So you're saying that he didn't know. Can you plead ignorance, figuring like, I didn't know I couldn't go in person to a game, so I did. Look, Do I think that if Stalions just went to the game, didn't have his shades on, didn't have anything else, I mean, like, I'm sure it's happened, like, an innocent mistake, but in this case, there doesn't seem a lot of innocent mistakes going on here. So I'm not really sure about, the point there, what's going on. That's what I'm saying. Here's Leo talking college football playoff. They want OSU won because if they lose to Michigan, they fall no lower than fourth. If Michigan loses, we are done. That's how they want it. Bias. Well, me trying to stand up for a college football selection committee that's sitting in there and saying they don't have biases. Yeah, they've got their biases, and they can mold it each week. I know they sit around there and they've got a lot of things that they're looking at. They're watching a lot of games and they're getting a lot of carry out, and they're running up their tabs and everything else. And there's a part of me that believes that that they're just looking to get the greatest matchup they can that the country will like. And if is there a problem with that? Well, yeah, you can say you're not actually getting the four best teams. Who knows exactly what they say and what they do. I've just noticed over the years that if they really want, like the first year, like Ohio State really didn't deserve to be in there the first year they were doing this, and yet they put them in, and then they won it all. So they ended up, making themselves look good. But you know, they can move around teams and get a team in there depending on what they value that particular year. So I'm not. I mean, there's politics involved in that too. So there you go. Is Antoine talking about the schedule? Yeah, well, we don't agree on the schedule, Antoine. So it's kind of water under the bridge on that. There's Mark wanting to talk some compliance again. Let's go through it. Mark on compliance. Frankly, the AD and the staff seem to have not prepared or trained the staff. Not really a head coach's job to redesign and implement training. Well, ultimately, could be right about that, but not as far as the NCAA. They actually have a rule that's in place now that it really doesn't matter. You are responsible for breaking a bylaw, somebody on your staff. I mean, that's a new rule. So it doesn't say anything that ultimately it goes back to any kind of chain of command or the AD or anything else, Mark. So I don't know. Here's UM, who says the media is taking it upon itself to be judge, jury, and executioner. They're trying to put pressure on any entity to punish Michigan, a bunch of crying losers. Well, if this was another team, you would, it depends. Like, you would be saying the same thing if it was, but it's against Michigan. When you say the media, look, these guys are entertainers. They've got lots of time to fill. Could you imagine that Stephen A. Smith would go up there? Let's just wait and see what happens with the investigation. Let Paul Feinbaum say, let's revisit this in the summer. Like, people are going to be clicking off pretty quick. They want some hot takes. They want your opinion if you're up there. So, so is that where you'd have to have Desmond Howard get up there and then, he's got to just roll out, what he thinks about, just give you all the Michigan talking points? Again, if you don't like somebody that's up there and what they're saying about college football, turn the channel. Don't read them. Don't go through it. You don't need to attack them on, that's what it all has become. If you like somebody and what they're saying, enjoy it. If you don't, turn the channel. Like the media, this is what they've always been. So I don't really know what you're looking for. This isn't new. The media always takes it upon itself. They're always looking for, and these guys make a lot of money. Stephen A. Smith, what's he make? $7 million a year? Being up there and saying, well, let's let it all play out. That's not what anybody wants to hear. besides Michigan fans. That's what only Michigan fans want to hear. Everybody else, they want to get it going. They love a scandal. That's what they love. So they love this. I got a prediction for next week. Scott getting us in on a Rashawn Gary contract. I think it was more than $96 million from what I saw, Scott, but I don't know. I'll take your it was a lot of money. Let's just say that. Ringo commenting on my looks. Let's see what he has to say here. He's noticing my facial hair. Did you happen to be in East Lansing on September 5th with a CMU hat and sunglasses on the sideline? No, I wasn't. I look a little bit, if I had a CMU hat, comb my hair, or shave my beard, that kind of thing. All right. It's kind of the same stuff. Antoine's talking about bad information, false information. I'm not really sure where you're going. Mark back on some compliance. Let's see what he's saying here. Ward seems responsible to train all athletic department employees on the NCAA bylaws and rules, and I doubt he did. Yeah, I don't know if he seems responsible to train. I think that is the responsibility of your immediate boss, and in this case would be Jim Harbaugh. I think that's right. I know, Mark, you want it to be true. Just keep typing it up. I don't know. Antoine has stopped listening to propaganda channels. Most all of them have been so wrong, so it's not even funny. Well, so you just watch pro Michigan stuff. That's all, Antoine. I mean, if you're all of these channels, they all have someone. So you just watch Michigan pod. That's fine. Like, and it's, look, cater it. There used to be a time where people would be upset about what was going on the radio. That's, people would say, why don't you just turn the channel? They'd say, because there's nothing else on. That's not a, and back in the day, I think there was some truth to that. There's like one sports show or something, but the amount of podcasts right now, just people that talk Michigan, you could start listening on any given Monday, and I don't know how many, 5, 6, 7 hours straight of just Michigan talk. You don't have to listen to anybody that you don't like on what they're saying. If it entertains you and you like it, if it helps you sleep at night, listen to it. Some people like to see it, like, let's see what these bastards are saying. I think that's how the media has always worked pretty much, Andres. I mean, so what are you going to do about this? So it's all kind of the same thing. Justin, should Michigan make offensive line coach just our OC and hire Taylor Lewan as an offensive line coach? No. I mean, Taylor Lewan is an offensive lineman, so if he wanted to go through and get into coaching, like go be a GA somewhere, and work his way up, just putting him on the Michigan staff just because he was got at one time the biggest contract to be a tackle, and he would be interesting to listen to be interviewed, but I'll make a guess that Taylor Lewan is never going to be a coach at Michigan. That would be my guess. Justin's wanting to talk about Halloween costumes. I must have missed. That was just a Halloween costume. People are in. Stalions was at the Lions game on the sideline. Okay. What was he wearing? Was he wearing a big stuffed head? He was going as Rory. Mark talking about a TV host canceling a 12-0 Michigan. Going to lose his job. These guys aren't going to lose their jobs. That's the one part about being in, like, that's the part that coaches I know get really upset with the guys in the media. They can say anything you want. But you know, go through all that. They can find something out. Like 6 months from now, let's just say, you know, they go through in Michigan, they get whatever, what seems to be, you know, you probably wouldn't think, I probably wouldn't think either, that they were like, you know, minor penalties, like a fine and I don't know, small suspension or something. And everybody would be like, "Ah, it's nothing." Michigan would be like, "So it wasn't that big of a deal." And all these guys that are going to be coming out, are they all going to go back and say, "Oh well"? No, they're going to, you know, cry that it should have been more, and that, you know, they'll take their angst out on the NCAA and compliance, you know, that way. So it's really one of those no lose situations when, you know, you're up there and you're a talking head. Be as entertaining and, you know, uh, blast Michigan as much as you can if you want that to be your angle, and keep beating that drum all the way to the national championship game. If it gets there, you know, you can really liven things up. And then if it doesn't work out and, you know, it comes out and there's not a whole lot to this, then at the end you can just go at the NCAA. And, you know, there you go. Antoine breaking out the rule book. He's talking about it's the yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, if you want, I know there's a lot of this is the Michigan side. Michigan has done nothing wrong anywhere in any of this. And if they did, you know, you had a rogue fanboy that was hired who went off and did his own thing. I mean, you know, I don't know. Are you buying that whole? Are you buying that? You know, this is just a misunderstanding, and let's leave Michigan alone. You know, I'm at this point where I'm sitting right now. You'd say, "Well, what are you doing? You know, answer the question. You're going to be like all these other." All right, I'll answer it. I think this comes down to what kind of evidence that you really have, because does Michigan can you prove? You might say, do you really believe they weren't using the signals with the guy standing right next? That's really not the question. Can you prove that they were using those signals? And you prove it by finding somebody at an opponent's game. That's they have that, and then you can interpret these bylaws. I know a lot of people want to use the lawyer and say, look, it doesn't say this in the book, so Michigan's going to be fine. And the NCAA's their interpretation, and what you as a lawyer or all of us that want to be lawyers in this situation, they can interpret it a different way. So with what they have right now, it seems pretty flimsy. And I think the other part about that, they wrote in that they didn't feel like it was much of an advantage in person. And in fact, third party could be used. And, you know, they could rewrite the rule and, you know, they could slap Michigan on the wrist because technically they, you know, with having somebody at a game and how they could interpret it, it might not be that big of a deal. It really might not be. And, you know, so, and that's the best case scenario for Michigan right now. They rewrite this rule. They give them a slap on the wrist. Very important, obviously, that they get to play the rest of this season. But am I saying that, like, I'm anticipating Jim Harbaugh being suspended, and, you know, the speculation on what the penalties will be, you know, from both sides. Like I'm talking about maybe a slap on the wrist. I'm saying, you know, like that to me, that is a little bit of wishful thinking, and, you know, because you know, using a lot of like you know, it wasn't that big of a deal. The NCAA didn't think it was that big of a deal. All the other teams are doing it. You know, cheating is rampant, and, you know, all of that. All of it taken into account, that Michigan comes out and doesn't get, you know, hit really hard on this. I think that there's a world in which that happens. You know, the other side where, you know, they really bring it down on them. That's not a fun side to speculate on. But if I do it for a second, I would say that, you know, they got a little something, you know, like that they're not really happy with with Jim Harbaugh and the NCAA. So if they can, if they can hit him and hit him a little harder, as much as they can, maybe they'll do that after this season. I mean, so there is a chance they could do that. So, but I don't sit here all day long and saying this is what should happen. This is the worst case scenario. When you start talking worst case scenario all the time, it becomes like, you're on ESPN and that you're Stephen A. Smith and, address what the worst case scenario could be, talk through it a little bit, give your opinion, and then move on. That's where I'm sitting with it. Let's go through some of the feedback. Count 22 is hearing things that Michigan's going to push back pretty soon. Yeah, I don't know what that looks like. Like, I think a pushback could be signing Harbaugh and coming out and, celebrating that the coach is going to be here. Richard says he feels violated. I understand that. Like, I understand that people are fatigued about this. Like, just talk about Michigan. Well, I would say just listen to the first 15 minutes of the show. That's all I did is talk about Michigan and Purdue. And then, look, if I look at 95% of the feedback on here, including the very first person that got on here and talk about, they're talking about this situation and the media and the NCAA and the Ohio State and Ryan Day and everybody against Michigan versus everybody. That's I understand how people feel like that, but I think that don't let it ruin your day. Like, some people enjoy, like, I don't know. I'm just going to make a guess. I don't know. I've never met Account 22. I think he likes going on. I'm just guessing. I think Account 22 likes going on Twitter. And I think he likes, going at a Michigan State fan who says something. I think he likes to, get into Stephen A. Smith's mentions. I think he likes it. He likes taking Michigan's side and fighting this out in this season. He's enjoying it. And I think there's a lot of people that are like that. If you don't like, the stories and, getting in there and fighting it out with rival fan bases and most of the media and making fun of Pete Thamel, and I just stay away from that. Just get ready for Saturday night, in Michigan and how they're going to come out against Purdue. Michigan's undefeated. Just have fun with that. You don't have to get involved in this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, like I said, there's a lot of people that like getting involved in this kind of stuff. Yep. Yeah, just speculation and allegations, right? So we don't know 100% if that was a staff member at the CMU game. So, there you go. Brian saying the guy in the photo had a visitor bench badge. He would have been on the request list. Well, and McElwain said he was not on the request list. That's what, I watched the video in the post game. So where did he get the pass? There's they forge up a pass and then dress up at a CMU thing and then be able to get past and just slide down on the sideline. I don't know. That part's weird. I don't know what to say to you, Brian. So at this point, somebody did on McElwain's staff slide him a back. I mean, is it illegal for not? Does it violate a bylaw? If you are another team, if you're Central, does it violate a bylaw if you give a pass to another coach whose team is playing so they can stand on your sideline? I don't know. I don't have the rule book in front of me. Maybe that's why McElwain was kind of kicking that one down the road. Like, I don't know. We're looking into this. So this is innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, remember, the thing is, this isn't that's nice to say, in a court of law, it's true, but that's not really the way it works. People are judged every second. And in sports, you get tried on social media, and then every night, especially if you're a popular team like Michigan. You're going to be judged every day, and a lot of assumptions are going to be made. And I've seen a lot of people like assuming this is true, and then they go on and say Michigan. You're like, that's all you have to say. That's what goes on. There's somebody saying that Michigan should go to court. Yeah, I think by being in the NCAA and being in the Big Ten, you have waived your rights. This part about you're not going to court. At least that's my understanding about it. Look, I sat here a month ago told Mark that they go by the college football standings. If Michigan and Penn State and Ohio State all have one loss, and he's like, no, they go with the common opponents and they go to the Big Ten West record. I said, it's news to me, and he was right. So, but that's my understanding of how it's going down. Let's get a couple more in here. Sign Harbaugh. Steve says, Sugar Shane getting in. It's simple. The top 6 control their own destiny. Win out, and you're in. Well, if you are undefeated, if you're Ohio State and they win out, is it true for Ohio State, Shane? Yes. Georgia, if they win out at being number 2 in the college, correct, they'll be in it. Michigan, we've been through them. Yes, they're in if they win out. Florida State, check. So then we have the other 2. So we know Ohio State, Michigan, one of them has to go down. And then the other one, so there's 3. And then you have Washington and Oregon. I watched that first time around that game. They would play in the Pac-12 championship game, and the winner, you'd assume, even if it was Oregon who lost to Washington, they would get voted in. Even though they played twice, but this would be the second time. You're right. I agree. Here's a prediction from Account 22. The signing will be announced soon. That sounds nice. I mean, like, it sounds good. Like I said, it doesn't mean everything, but it is a strike to go back at everyone. Michigan can't really talk about it, but hey, are they then going to hold a news conference and saying, hey, look, we're happy to have Jim Harbaugh. What about we feel comfortable where we're at. We can't talk about an ongoing investigation, but we're really happy with Jim Harbaugh. They can work around it a lot of different ways. We're happy to have the coach with us. And we're hoping he's going to be here, for the next 7 years, or however they said. I don't think they would say your hope. We're looking forward to having him with us for the next 7 years. And they got his back and all those things. And even when they take questions, well, what about the NCAA? He's like, look, we can't talk about the ongoing investigation. But we could talk about Jim Harbaugh being around for another 7 years. It's a nice way to strike back. Yes, it does. Here's OT getting in late on the show. A couple more. Whatever happened to due process and innocent until proven guilty? It's crazy how quick people want to pound the flesh. Yeah, well, just remember, if the shoe was on the other foot, everyone, like if this was Ohio State, everybody would be calling a bunch of dirty, rotten cheaters. They've been cheating forever. And if the NCAA had any backbone, or the Big Ten, it's just all about money, and you'd be saying the same thing. So you do have to play that in. But the whole thing about, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people, the Stephen A. Smith, do something right now. Like, those are just hot takes. And you can hear it, and they can even have a point. But when they examine the history of the sport, what's going on with the top teams in the past when they've had, scandal, air quotes, perceived scandal around them and allegations, you do get a chance in with how it works. And and plus, the new Big Ten commissioner, they've got by not doing anything, the focus on Michigan, Ohio State. Could you imagine? You don't want to imagine. Like, I'm saying all this, but it would be very shocking. But let's just say first, we'll just deal with it for 20 seconds. The Big Ten comes out and says Michigan's not eligible to be in the Big Ten championship game because of this integrity of the game. The juice, the excitement for a then Michigan Penn State game goes this way. And the same thing for the number 1 versus number 2. You know what sells? Perceived or real scandal. It sells. Michigan's going to sell. Michigan's selling right now. So, there's a lot of things to point to why Michigan would be able to, like what you're talking about, being able to defend themselves and precedent. And those are 2 pretty big things. It's never happened before. This is the precedent. Being able to defend yourself, that's how it should be. And then, the money that is involved by just saying, hey, let's let this play out. Those are the 3 things. Maybe I should have just said this at the beginning, now that I've talked through it. 3 things that Michigan has going for them in terms of being able to play this season out. Precedent. There's no conference that's got in, or the NCAA with a team that isn't in that a notice of allegations or some conference going in there and, excluding them from of the postseason after, just looking at 2 weeks of some allegations. Let's throw the book at them. So the being able to defend yourself and then the money that's involved. All 3 of those things are working for Michigan. So I think they're going to be able to play this out, right? Michigan lawyers won't let the Connor photo stand. Yeah, I know there's a lot of lawyers in there. The one thing is, the lawyers are great. I don't know. How do you prove that that's him or it's not? Facial recognition. I've seen all of that. I saw somebody debunking the Ray-Ban camera, like, the resolution, or you only get a minute. Whatever. Hey, look, I mean, these strange twists and in turns. Here we are. Mark, who's had an interesting day here talking about bylaws, and he's asking a hypothetical. How would you like to be Connor if you weren't trained on the bylaws? Thought this wasn't a violation, didn't read the bylaws. Since before you hire, he surely was allowed to go and do, since before hire, surely he was allowed to go and do what he did. Yeah, look, Mark, you're starting to talk about the bylaws and the NCAA and being versed on every single one of those. I mean, I don't know. I've worked for some major companies. We've had to watch a lot of training videos, and but as do we go? We don't actually go through ignorance of the bylaws. I don't think is going to be something that he's going to be able to. It's not going to be a defense for him, just like it's not going to be able to be a defense for Jim Harbaugh if somebody on his staff did this. It's written right in there that you're responsible for it. So I don't know. There's no proof. They just have pictures. I don't know. Mark puts it in all caps. Ward should have trained Connor on the rules. Yeah. Antoine is talking about the people that are calling Stalions crazy. He doesn't think he thinks he's a genius because he actually read and understood the rules. Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's a genius. I mean, if he's a genius, the genius is, are you a genius if you get caught and, somehow take down the Michigan football? He's not taking down the Michigan football program. So I don't know. genius and manifestos and all those things, like crazy genius. I don't know. I don't know about being a genius. Antoine wants to talk about the word in itself, manifesto, because of the communists. Well, it's not just communist. Like I don't know. Has anybody ever written a manifesto and say, "Oh, hey, well, this is good. This is a manifesto that I want to read"? No, mostly manifestos are like you're talking about the, Cold War, crazed lunatics that get involved with, the government. They have their manifestos. I've never seen a manifesto. He called it a manifesto. It wasn't like this is my outline for greatness. He called it a manifesto. I don't know how much of a genius you are if you're calling it. OT bringing up Pete Thamel. He's a real popular guy with Michigan fans right now. Thamel signing Harbaugh would be the biggest middle finger ever to the NCAA we've ever seen. But Kansas and Tennessee dragged the NCAA to court for their crimes. Wasn't a bigger middle finger. I know it's a little choppy here. Like Thamel's concentrating on the latest. I don't know how much he's, putting into, and I know that it gets a little funny when the defense says, hey, Kansas and Tennessee's they were really crooked. So now, Michigan, we got to wait. Let that part, we got to let them play out. Is it a middle finger signing Jim Harbaugh? Well, it is a chance to be able to back your coach without being able to come out and talk about an investigation. You might not think it's a good idea because if Michigan's going to, and we all think, despite what, Stephen A. Smith and others are saying, Chris Russo, I didn't even hear what the Mad Dog had to say. It wouldn't surprise me if he was saying the same thing as these guys said. But if you don't think that there's any chance that the Big Ten will step in, well, then maybe you just wait to the end of the year before you do anything, right? So, or, the people really want, Michigan to get behind their coach. And, would the Big Ten feel like it's a middle finger? That's my question. I'm pondering it. By doing something, could it affect how the Big Ten? I don't think so. No. There we go. We'll take the last few here. It's a continuation of a media frenzy. They just need to drop something every day. Yesterday it was Pat Forty with the ball boy nonsense. Cody quoting Stephen A. Smith. Big Ten needs to drop the hammer. Yet we've already talked about Smith. People going, look, you like him, you don't like him, that kind of stuff. Let's see what John is talking about. A hole is a great source. There you go. I think this is about it's all BS. Wistro says, good point. Moose says he was at Kroger's yesterday. Stalions was videotaping the produce section. Stalions is my next door neighbor. Everyone is Stalions. Yeah, have some fun with it. Let's see. MAM, M-A-M, says he's learned a valuable lesson. If you want the media to play with your story, spoon feed it bit by bit to ensure it is just hungry enough for more. Scott making a statement on Harbaugh. He's a great football coach, but he brings controversy with him. Yeah. Well, and you could say if this is a defensive Harbaugh, you could say, yeah, I mean, he's going against He's got OSU coming after him. He's got the rest of college football. He's got the NCAA. He's going to butt heads along the way with him. And I do think this. If you want to play with the big boys in college football, if you want to beat Ohio State, if you want to go to the college football playoffs and win them, you need somebody like Jim Harbaugh. You need somebody like Jim Harbaugh that's going to be in that rule book. You need somebody like Jim Harbaugh that's going to be able to stand up to these other coaches. You're going to need somebody like Jim Harbaugh that will stand up and thumb his nose at the NCAA with smaller violations. I don't know if you necessarily needed him to do that, but he's not perfect. You could look at some of his hiring practices and wonder, what is he doing there? But when it comes down to getting a team ready, and in a sport that has always been rife with controversy and scandal and cheating, you're going to need somebody like Harbaugh if you want to win in college football. You got to fight fire with fire. So Michigan's got a coach that they can win a national championship with. There's a lot of coaches in college for a lot of teams that look out there and they're wondering, I don't know, do we have a coach that can stand toe-to-toe with some of these other coaches? Like, you know what? Let's go through it real quick. Do I think that Michigan with Jim Harbaugh could stand toe-to-toe in the coaching department with James Franklin? I like where Michigan's at with Harbaugh. I think Ryan Day, I like where Michigan's at standing toe-to-toe with Jim Harbaugh. And any other coach in college football. And, there's only a few teams that can say that. So you're going to have to deal with that. He's not perfect. Not perfect. But, again, you're going to need somebody like that. You want to play with the big boys. All right, Friday, we'll be previewing Michigan, Purdue. I'll say that there won't be anything else going on. Won't have to deal with it. Maybe we'll be talking about Jim Harbaugh with a new contract. Maybe we'll talk about, hey, the media has just eased back, So it was just something to talk about. It's dying out, the story. I don't think that's going to happen, but everybody enjoy the rest of their November the 1st. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hitting those like buttons and commenting on the podcast. All of that is appreciated. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. I tell you this, but I'm going to tell you one more time before we go. Join up. You like talking about Michigan all day, all night? Well, that's what we do over on the Maize and Blue Review. Join us today. We can hash all of this out. Mark could be over there talking about the compliance with the bylaws and see what others had to say about it. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Just give us a chance. That's what we ask. Until Friday.